Ola. I am the director of AIA's Climate Action Pledge programs, including 2030, and also overseeing the DDX database, making sure it is running and working for everyone as we enter the next reporting period for reporting year 2024, which we're currently still in. I was previously in the research team at AIA for about 5 years or so, recently transitioned over to the climate action team, and will fully admit that it's been a while since I've input projects into the DDX. When I did it, it was about half the size that it is now. None of the embodied carbon data was a part of it. So I'm learning as much as you guys are as well. I'm going to go ahead and share some slides and then pass it to Ina and Jesse to do some introductions. So let me go ahead and share my screen. One second. Get up. All right, here we go. Okay, hopefully you all can see my screen now, and you'll be seeing a title slide for the 2030 commitments updates. Move my screen over, there we go. So welcome. Here is who is on the call today. As I introduced myself already, we also have Ina and Jesse, and then over on the right here, we have some good links to have, and we will also be having more office hours to come in 2025. So stay tuned for those and register for those. But Ina, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thanks, Melanie. I see a lot of familiar names on this call. My name is Ina Bakioki. You will see my name be floating around quite a bit these next 4 months as you are reporting your projects into the DDX for the AI 2030 commitment. I am the Climate Action Pledge Programs Manager, working alongside Melanie on both the AI 2030 commitment and the Materials Pledge. So you'll see that last bullet on the right-hand side, if your firm is also a signatory for the Materials Pledge, there will be an overlap in reporting windows. So if you all know, Materials Pledge is will be in their second year of reporting data, and this is a bit longer than the 2030 commitment reporting period. But we have separate office hours for those. And if you don't have those, just give me a shout in the chat and I'm happy to send those along as well. I have been with the AI for a little over 3 years now, and this will be my 3rd reporting cycle for AI 2030. Jesse, pass it over to you.
Yeah, hi all. I'm Jesse Walton with Malum Architects, also one of the co-chairs of the AI 2030 working group. I'm actually right in the middle of my 2-year term. I am also the chair of the DDX subcommittee, so I am very familiar with the Design Data Exchange. Malum has been a signatory for 13 years, and so we've been using the DDX as long as it's been in existence. There was a lot of bulk upload. Also really passionate about fuel source and embodied carbon reporting into the DDX as well. So happy to answer any questions anyone has about the technicalities of getting your data into DDX.
Great, thank you. And just want to note here, if you're having issues with DDX 2030, there's an email address that Ina manages the inbox to, and we also have a separate one for the Materials Pledge, which is just materials@aia.org. But please do feel free to reach out to us that way and we can get your questions answered. Okay, moving forward. This is just a basic overview slide that I wanted to kind of realign us to the mission of 2030. There's a QR code there. If any of you are not yet signatories, go check out our landing page. And we also have reports as well that track firm data. And we'll be getting a little bit into that later, just as a kind of reminder of why we're all here, why we're all doing this good work, why we should all be telling our friends about the DDX and asking them to report their data as well. So this is the broad view of the previous reporting year, which was 2023. If you joined the 2030 by the numbers presentation, you will have gotten a deeper dive with Ina and Jesse and David into what all these numbers mean, what was new for last year, but wanted to give a sense of where we are with reporting. And if you look on the right-hand side, specifically, there's a number related to embodied carbon, and we look forward to all these numbers going up, but specifically related to this next reporting cycle, some of the embodied carbon numbers should go up because of new capabilities. So this was sort of an overview of the previous year, and what I found particularly interesting is the sort of rate of increase in the number of firms signing on seems to be fairly steady, but that delta between who's reporting in the green bar and the signatories is still quite a ways away. So our aim is to close the gap between the blue and the green bar and get more and more firms reporting their data and sharing with us and comparing with each other as well. So this was in the by the numbers report, from the previous cycle, and calling this out specifically to show that we've plateaued a little bit in terms of PEUI reduction in the DDX, and this has been a little bit of a trend for at least the past 4 to 5 years. So we would like to get these percentages up. As we're approaching 2030, it's not that far away anymore. Next year it'll be 5 years away, even though we're kind of a cycle behind on the reporting cycle. We really need to think about the realities of where we are and how we're going to get closer to 100%, especially facing some headwinds in the future. So again, a reminder, there are different ways to input your data into the DDX, depending on how much you have, depending on your history with the DDX. As some of our working group leaders like to say, just start with one project. The easiest way to do that is the direct data input, but for some of you, we know you've been in the DDX for a number of years, so there are other ways to input your data. All right, that was all the kind of upfront overview. And now I'll get into some updates specific to DDX that's come in this last year. Reminder, we do have our support pages. They're very, very useful. And if you see the little bullet here, there's an updates to the DDX. This will be updated every single year. It's a good place to go if you're wondering what the latest is. There'll be little links there. And as we called out before, there's also a page with the open office hours links to register as well. All right, so I'll be showing a little bit of this live once we get through these slides, but I wanted to call out some new places where data is going to live. A lot of you probably don't know because it's a little bit inside baseball, but AIA.org recently went through a platform shift. You probably saw visually that it changed. Some of the older pages were then retired because of this shift. So we are taking the signatory directory from the main.org page. Now it's going to be embedded directly in the DDX. We will link to it from our regular.org pages 2030 overview page as well. So you can get to it from there. And this is more a note for me, but currently what we're going to be walking through is on the staging site, which is not the full production DDX. There is a release tomorrow. So a lot of these changes will be showing up in the DDX proper as of tomorrow morning, and we will be testing and checking and making sure everything's working. We know there's some issues that we'll cover in this overview as well, but here's the staging site, and I'll show you where that link is going to be. If you're familiar at all with the signatory directory, there's not a huge change here. the colors changed because it's in a different spot now. We added some links on the right-hand side. You'll be able to get to some AIAU courses. We want to be able to share some education with you. And we added a little checkbox for firms that currently have sustainability action plans as a little like incentive to show off those ones that have uploaded an action plan. And we added a kind of top reporting firm designation just to kind of show the firms that have been reporting year after year. There may be some issues with this depending on when your firm signed up to be a signatory, whether it was before the DDX was a thing. We're still looking into some of these numbers. So if you see something that doesn't look right, email the 2030 commitment email address and we can address it there. There's also a link to the Dropbox library where you can go and check out other firms' sustainability action plans, get inspiration, understand how to think about your own firm's sustainability action plan and get started putting that together. Okay, so into some of the changes in the DDX proper. Again, I'm showing screenshots from the staging site. That's why it looks a little bit different. There's a little bit different color at the top, but these will all be live as of tomorrow. So we added some new energy codes into the DDX, which you'll be able to select from. It just so happened that 3 of these show up because they're at the top of the alphabet. And then the Massachusetts one, you'll be able to scroll down and get to that one as well. Okay, next, the enhanced collaborator function. So previously, as I understand it, you could add an individual as a collaborator as long as they were in the DDX. You could share projects with them. But in this new setup, we have also added a company collaborator, and there is a help page for this if you want to understand the different parts and pieces. But basically what I'm showing here is you can select company now, and it will give you a contact list from a company. And then on the left-hand side, I noted that they do need to have a DDX profile already. They need to be in our system. So if you know that you want to have somebody as your collaborator, make sure they're in the DDX first. It'll just kind of save a step when you get to this point and you want to add them in. And since we're talking about collaborators, I'll turn it over to Jesse to talk about some of our organizational collaborators as well.
Yeah, a little bit of a tangent here on the DDX updates, but definitely related to this collaborators feature we now have. Is some of those collaborators might be your structural engineers if they're putting in embodied carbon data, or they might be your mechanical engineers if they're helping you out with energy modeling. So I just wanted to give a quick plug for our partnered organizations. SE 2050 is one of them. They sit on they have a position on the 2030 working group where they're always listening to what's going on in the 2030 working group, and we're making sure that we're aligning metrics between the groups. But I would say if you have a collaborator that's a structural engineer, ask them if they've joined SE 2050. If they have or if they have not, they have. There's lots of great resources for structural engineers, but also architects, things like embodied carbon intensity diagrams. There's an image here showing the differences in embodied carbon intensity between steel office bays, concrete, mass timber. There's also their annual reports, which are similar to our annual reports, but they focus on just the embodied carbon data that they are collecting as structural engineers. And they also have some resources. If you go to the next page, it's, again, another one of our collaborators, MEP 2040. They also sit on the 2030 working group with us to make sure that we're aligning metrics and asks. They have some great quarterly forums where they talk about the specifics of embodied carbon as it relates to mechanical systems, talking about low GWP refrigerants. And if you have a collaborator that's a mechanical engineer, I would ask them, have they joined the MEP 2040? And I think that's it. We can go back to DDX updates.
Yeah, that's great. And we love to have these people inputting the data into the DDX directly. If it's not an architect on your team, please invite a collaborator to come in and put the numbers in directly so you don't necessarily have to worry about that. And just a little teaser, we may have some sessions on this at conference next year in June in Boston. So stay tuned for more content on this kind of collaboration efforts. And speaking of collaborations, the embodied carbon harmonization and optimization project is a big one for us. So as I said, I just sort of joined this team a few months ago, but I'm already involved with ECHO's meetings. There's one this week as well. And we really have relied on them to help us with understanding the fields that we should be inputting for embodied carbon and the overall goal. You see SE 2050 and MEP 2040 listed there as well. So we're all in communication with each other in trying to lower our embodied carbon numbers and get to kind of a total carbon number as well. And just wanted to note that if you have questions about the ECHO project or want to know more, the website is there down at the bottom. There are some resources and white papers as well that they have put out. So lots of things to look at and explore more. Okay, so this is probably the biggest change / upgrade that has happened literally within the last few weeks. Now that we're at the end of 2024, is a whole new user journey for embodied carbon only projects. So I'll say right at the beginning, this is not required for reporting. This is sort of in experimental mode. But if you have some data you want to start getting into an embodied carbon only scenario, we have built out some capabilities in that realm. You will still see embodied carbon fields in the whole building sections as well. We haven't removed anything. We've just added a few designations and then started this embodied carbon journey as well, realizing that some people have some data that they would like to start inputting and tracking and doing on kind of on the side. These will not interfere with the numbers that we get out in terms of the by the numbers reporting. This is kind of a separate endeavor here. But when you go into the DDX and you want to do an embodied carbon only project, you will have the opportunity to do that right as you're setting up a project. And you'll see that come up under project type. So this is one step in as you're setting up your project. We, for the first time, are having unconditioned space that you can add in as well, knowing that not all of your space is necessarily going to be conditioned, and you would put that in for the regular whole building journey, but embodied carbon is a little bit different. So we added in some of these areas where you can put in different kinds of space. So going a little bit further in, this is just an overview of what your kind of project page will look like. I can show you in the DDX where to find some of this. But again, this is just the first step towards building out a whole embodied carbon section. This is what we're going to be focused on probably for the next year plus. We'll also have a way to connect an API and get some of that modeling directly, or some of those numbers directly from your model. But we are not there at this point. We are trying to just get this kind of experimental phase up and running and able to take in some data and spit out some numbers and make sure just everything's working, everything's making sense. Jesse and I were just talking about changing some of these measurements in these fields. So these could change over the next few days and weeks for sure. And as I said, some of it will be going live as of tomorrow morning. All right, so this is even one step further in when you're setting up your embodied carbon only project. basically just wanted to show here that we're going to have different stages, different scopes that you can input. There's not necessarily going to be calculations at this point. It's going to be, or calculations on the back end. It's going to be a sum, GWP number or an intensity number. It's not going to do any fancy calculations on the back end at this point. But you'll have opportunities to put in your modeling tool. We want to understand what tools people are using. You get some of that data now, want to continue to collect that. And then starting to think about MEP as well, and furnishing and some of the interiors related embodied carbon numbers that people may be starting to track. And not shown on the screen, but I put in the bullets. It's below this add stage section is the question on biogenic carbon, which is also in the whole building journey as well. That will also be here. Okay, so that's sort of the broad view of what's coming up. And we can demonstrate some of these. We can take you into it. You can ask us questions. Hopefully we can answer them, but just wanted to give a few plugs as we kind of round out this part of the presentation. There's an article you should all go read if you haven't already about the White House's recent definition for a net zero emissions building and how that impacts us as architects and how you can use the DDX to help. And finally, a little plug for the Biden numbers report. If you haven't yet checked it out, you should do so. And the QR code here can take you to that. And that's basically all I've got in this portion. Again, here's the email address. If you have questions after this webinar, want to point something out to us, that's the way to contact us. And I'm actually going to stop sharing and we can do some demos and do some chatting. Right. So any pressing questions that have come up so far before we get, oop, I see the chat is active.
Yeah, I can just jump in quickly.
Sure.
And just share out there some couple questions on the company collaborator function. And so in short, so let's say Jesse and I are collaborating on our main vacation home in the DDX. So we both will be able to submit the same exact project that we're sharing in the DDX. Let's say last week he put in a couple edits, a couple months ago I put in a couple edits, but as company collaborators, those edits will be reflected in our project information, as well as our colleagues, kind of when our colleagues pop in as well. So Melanie, who is within my company, so our main vacation home should appear under her projects as well, because we are all company collaborators. And then when we go ahead and submit that project, we both can do it. Both firms are able to submit them, and when we're pulling our data for the kind of final aggregated data analysis, that will not be double counted. So only one main vacation home is coming through, but it will be a part of both of our company profiles, as well as the data that is being reflected on the DDX research and reports tab for your firm. Unfortunately, SE 2050 and MEP 2040 are not in the DDX. SE 2050 has their own reporting platform, as Jesse mentioned, and MEP is still working through developing what collecting data for their signatory program will look like as well.
Anything else before I can show kind of how to get to the signatory directory? Anything we want to do before that? Okay. I'm going to start resharing. Okay. All right. So this is the screenshot that you were just seeing. This is now what the staging site looks like, and it gives you a little warning that you're in the staging environment. I still get confused sometimes when I'm inside and don't realize I'm in the staging environment. But you should all be able to access this if you want to test things out. So you have to do a sign up, but you can use your same login information. So this is what the main DDX homepage will look like, knock on wood, as of tomorrow. So there'll be a new background, a new image, and then over here on the left-hand side, this is where the directory will live. So clicking into there, it'll just show you the different parts of it. As I said, the actual functionality didn't change that much. You should still be able to search by firm name, by country, by state. We added some links. We added this SAP. You can filter or sort by each of these as well. And basically one of the new parts here is to take you directly to the Dropbox library, where you can look at various different firms. Sorry, on top of my own tabs here. Backing out again, I am just going to sign in. Okay, so here's the staging site. I just wanted to show you a couple of things here. Obviously, there's a lot of test projects in here as we're trying to break stuff or trying to make sure things are reporting the way they should be. There are also ways, I don't know how many of you have experimented with looking at different ways to sort your own data. There are different columns that you can go through, select, deselect, depending on your needs and what you're looking for. I just briefly wanted to show the embodied carbon kind of home page. It basically looks the same, but with different kind of data report outs here, the different capabilities. Mainly it's just that certain things have disappeared. This should look broadly the same. When you click in to add design data, things will look a little bit different here. Toggle this on. We could just auto populate it to yes, because if you're in the embodied carbon, you're going to have embodied carbon data. Anyway, didn't want to get too into the weeds on the actual data that you'll be inputting, but just want to show basically that there's some equipment furnishings added in here. We're asking you to name your above and below grade space, and then you can add scope, you can delete scope, you can add stages, you can remove stages. And here's that biogenic carbon question down at the bottom. You can write in as well. So that's basically all I wanted to share on that part. Any demos or details that we want to get into? Any questions for the good of? Yeah.
I can just reiterate about the embodied carbon changes. Was all of the questions you see there and the scope and stages is all an attempt to align with the ECHO
Exactly.
Reporting framework, where they call it schema, the new ECHO schema that was just released a couple months ago. So it's still a work in progress, but
I'll put it in the chat too.
Yeah, all of that embodied carbon revisions is all to align with the ECHO project's reporting schema.
Yeah, so this question that just came in, yes, now we can import data by stage, and that is the goal. So we started with the embodied carbon only journey. We wanted it to align a little bit closer to the whole body embodied carbon section. So eventually we will get there, or not even eventually, next year we will get there where you'll be able to put in your stage and scope information right in your whole building project as well. We just wanted to start off with the embodied carbon section as a separate section, test stuff out, make sure we were collecting the right kinds of data. It all made sense. And then we'll be bringing that back into the main whole building section as well.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Melanie, but the bulk upload spreadsheet as well will not have the embodied carbon only journey. It will still have the previous embodied carbon data, which was just embodied carbon intensity, which modeling tool, how many years, et cetera, but not by life cycle stage and scope, correct?
I have to look at the life cycle stage and scope specifically. It does have the embodied carbon questions on there. Let me
But you will
actually
not be able
open.
to put in A1 through A5.
Yeah,
and-
let me just open it
Well-
now and I can confirm or
Yeah.
or disagree. Let's see. Any other questions you guys could cover in the meantime?
Like there's questions about signing up for office hours. Do you want to take that one?
Yep. So at the very beginning, and I can resend it right now, I threw in the link for our RY24 open office hours. And so you'll see kind of a schedule of when those are happening, as well as the Zoom registration links. So kind of the sequence for kind of new signatories that are joining us right now, the sequence of how we do these open office hours is just because we want to get all of this new reporting DDX updates information ahead of time as you all start to report beginning January. That's why we have this kind of in its first iteration of the sequence. And then in January, so for next year, January 14th is when we kind of dial it back a little and go step by step, walk through the DDX. And so this is an introductory or a refresher for anyone who needs it on how to input projects into the DDX. So that's where we'll go through the 3 different types of ways to input your projects, as well as will be a lot more of a demonstration in the actual platform, as opposed to this updates webinar was a little more presentation like.
Okay, so going back to the question about the spreadsheet. So currently when you export, there is a project type that's only embodied carbon. And it does have numbers of stories, height of building, GWP, total, and then life cycle stage. These are not going to be required, but there are currently fields in there. But I'm seeing that stage system needs to change to scope. So yeah, there's still some updating to do.
I think I can answer your question about is firm-wide average PUI reduction still based only on project and design phases, not in construction phases. The way I use it is we input PUI reduction all the way through construction, and that average is including any design or construction phase that you've input data for that year. If you stop inputting data and you don't report that project for that year, it's not included in your average. But if you do have, if you added a PV array on your roof during construction and that net reduction changed, it will be included in your reporting annual PUI reduction number. Like there was a question about logging in with a one profile or many.
Okay, that this each member in the company shall have their own account profile. Okay. Sounds like we might have to take that offline. If you're in the same firm, yeah, it should show up under your company projects.
Firm profile. I think you have
Yeah.
to be an administrator for your firm, so maybe that's why you're not seeing. Or no, you can see everybody even if you're not an administrator. Yeah. Okay.
Anything else? Anybody want to unmute and ask a question?
Real quick question, just to clarify, the DDX will be updated tomorrow to reflect what you showed in the screenshots today?
Yes, so we're on a cycle of every 2 weeks. We have a push to the production site, so anything that we're testing on the staging site will be pushed. It's just happens to land on a Thursday, so tomorrow there'll be a new cycle, and the embodied carbon only becomes live. I think the new energy codes may already be on the DDX. But yes, the embodied carbon journey, and then the link will show up with the direct signatory directory as well on the homepage. So if you don't see that, that means something went wrong, and let us know. We'll be checking tomorrow as well, just to make sure everything's functioning correctly.
Hey Z, I see your question in there about previewing firm-wide performance throughout the year. I do not believe that is possible on the overall tab. I think you have to submit for a reporting year for it to give you that PUI reduction average. Sorry, but you could report at any time during the year and it will give you the number, and then you can just report again. I believe we only use the most recent report for the annual report, the national annual report. So go ahead and submit whenever you want.
Although we're hearing that some people are having problems submitting at the moment, where having it show up in their company profile. We're working on that currently.
Yeah, it is useful for how are we doing quarterly updates, yeah. Or use a spreadsheet, then bulk upload.
Come on now, Z, fight fair. No, we're all
Guilty.
nerds here.
Guilty.
Is anybody on here who's involved with the Echo project? Just wondering if anybody logged in and wanted to pipe in. Just wasn't sure. Anyway, we'll be talking a lot about Echo over the next 6 months to a year, especially as we get the API connected. After this next reporting period, so after March of next year, there'll be new capabilities. We know that it's a little bit cumbersome at the moment, but we're in experimental mode.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm letting the cat out of the bag, but aren't there plans in 2025 to get the API integrated into softwares that we all typically use so that you can export your embodied carbon data from that software into the DDX?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's already underway, right?
That's the goal. Yeah, I mean, it's in discussion, and definitely we're in close communication with folks like Autodesk. We just need to put some pieces in place, and like obviously we don't want to interrupt the reporting period for January through March of next year. So any big changes would come after that.
After this year's reporting period. Yeah.
So changes happening with the API for this year. At the moment, we're just trying to get it to stop breaking. We're getting a lot of errors. Where I'm in contact with at least 3 different software companies who are having concerns. We think some of that should be fixed by tomorrow. But I don't know that there are any big changes to the API this year. I don't think so. Not something happened before September, but that I don't know about. Any changes to LPD reporting? Not that I'm aware of. Great. Well, we got a couple minutes left if people want to put your questions in the chat. Otherwise, we can kind of wrap up and give people some time back and let us know via the email if you're having issues and we can help out. Great. Well, feel like
Thanks
we got
all.
off easy. Thanks, Jesse.
All right.
Thanks for your
See-
time.
Yeah,
Yep.
thanks
Reach out
everybody.
to
See you
us.
in the new year for the open office hours.
Yes. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again soon.
All right, bye all.
Thanks all.